Hi folks, welcome back to Bear Mountain. We are now in week 10 of this year, and we're going to be planting some things today in the greenhouse that are going to be basically veg. But in this week we are starting our kale crops. We're going to start broccoli, and we're going to start a red cabbage as well as a green cabbage, and also probably get some cauliflower too, just to kind of we're going to be growing the type that are self-blanching cauliflower, so meaning the leaves will come up and over the heads a little bit. You won't have to tie them up. The cabbages we're raising are Tierra, which are a small green. We're talking about, you're looking at about 3 to 4 pound heads, roughly in that zone. They're typically about this big. And the same thing with the reds, is not super huge. So we're not really raising, super huge heads of cabbage for making kraut. This is more like for eating fresh. And so we're not going to be doing a whole lot. And what we're going to kind of do with these kinds of things is raise things in such a way that we don't get overwhelmed, but we have enough for, making great meals. And then we move on and think about there are certain types of kale crops that do a little bit better in the summertime, and that's kind of what we'll be doing. Another planting probably come along about May for a late summer harvest, and those are going to be more outside. They're going to be in the main garden up above our greenhouse here. These type of things we're going to be planting with the kale that we started a couple weeks ago are going to go down in our tunnel. It's going to be raised down there with some other cool crops like our peas. This week we will be planting our shelling peas. These are our peas and they're ready to plant. And we've got the beds all worked up, as you might have seen from our electroculture video that we've done. We now have the entire tunnel that we're going to plant these guys in, plus other things in, that's now completely under electroculture. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these guys do. Our snow peas and a few extra shelling peas, because we had a kind of a poor germination on one of our trays, are up, and so they're a little bit further behind these guys, so they're going to be planted a little bit later. But this tray here is really good to go. So this is going to be our first green shelling peas of the season. Now the other thing that we're going to plant too is we're going to plant some carrots. And we're going to try a technique that we saw that kind of caught our interest on the internet. It was on YouTube, and it was using these egg shell cartons. And basically the idea is, since this is kind of a really not a super heavy duty cardboard, but kind of turns to like a wet graham cracker when it gets wet, the idea is that we would poke holes in the bottom of these things, small holes, for drainage, but fill this with potting soil and then start individual carrots in this. And the interesting thing about this is if we did this, maybe, put 2 or 3 seeds in each one, that it would give you already a thinning. So you wouldn't have to go through and do thinning, like when you normally plant carrots and you try to put the seeds out and you end up with a lot of, some really close together and some, kind of not so close together. The idea behind this is that if you put a couple of seeds in each one of these cells, then when they're up and they're ready to plant, which would be very quickly, this is basically just to get them germinated, you then would plant this tray in the soil and just kind of gently put the soil around it. Watering then would cause the cardboard to basically rot, and the hole in the bottom would not constrain the roots. So basically it's kind of an interesting way of making sure you got your spacing right, and that way you could get you won't have to thin your carrots, and you could theoretically get bigger carrots because they weren't constrained by crowding out and that nature. So we're going to do our first planting of those. The variety of carrots that we're going to be raising, it's a hybrid. It's an early carrot called Adelaide, and we got it from Johnny's. And so we're going to be planting that today, and then later in the week we're going to be planting flowering stock, which is also in the brassica family. And we're going to be planting, I think we're going to be getting ready to start some of the additional things that we're going to put in our pots, like alyssums and things of that nature. The plants that we started, the snapdragons and the straw flowers and things like that have just come up, and so we'll be bumping those guys up. You remember the slotted tray technique we were using. Those are going to be ready for, at least the straw flowers for sure, ready for potting on into 6-packs. So they're going to be ready to basically go here pretty quick as well. And we're really kind of getting crowded in the greenhouse. So some of this stuff is going to get down and get planted. So like I said, we're going to do the peas this week. And then the onions, we are technically like March 4th today. So I'm hoping to be able to put the onions in next week, and that'll free up quite a bit of space. And our sweet peas have also germinated. So these guys, I can move these guys out into some cool areas so they can grow on cool. To finish off, I'll probably move them down we have a rack set up in the house where one of our hoop houses that we can move this to, and that they can grow on a kind of cooler there. I'm not too worried about super cold nights anymore. We can get a few. You can get some frost, but we're not going to probably get anything that's going to go down to the low 20s or anything like that. That would be kind of rare. Now, obviously when I say that, I'm cursing the whole thing, and of course it'll happen. No, I'm just kidding. Basically, we're kind of through what, at this point, we're at 11 hours. We're a little better than 11 hours a day length in our zone. We're at the 44th, almost 45th parallel. So we are at a point where we're almost to that spring day. And spring, believe it or not, I think it's like March 21st or 22nd, somewhere right in that zone, is just right around the corner. You know, we're only a couple of weeks away. So for us, the winter weather is, for the most part, behind us, but we have seen weird little quickie snowstorms come in even as late as March 23rd. So we just have to be kind of careful of that, and if it looks like it's going to get cold, we'll just use a frost blanket over them. So today's kind of really an easy day. We're going to do a tray up with some 6-packs and then get our carrots going. And then the next step, the rest of the video will show you, is planting, how we're going to plant our shelling peas with our netting system down in the tunnel. Okay, so I mixed up the soil, ready to go here. We typically do about a 50% of pro mix with we bought some regular potting mix that was just from a home center. It's organic. It doesn't have any additives in it. It's not like Miracle Grow stuff. It's just basically kind of a fur-based potting mix with some perlite in it and maybe a little mushroom compost in it. So it's certified organic, but you know, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But it was fairly reasonably priced, and mixing it together seems to give me a pretty good potting mix. So I've done 2 6-packs for each variety of brassica we're going to plant, and that way I have enough. I'm shooting to get 4 to 6 good plants in the ground. Closer to 6 would be better. And in some cases, I want more broccoli, maybe, and so I might end up planting more than 6 broccoli. But I'm going to have hopefully 12 to choose from, and then we have the cabbage and the cauliflower as well. So that's going to be ready to go here. Just need to get it wetted down. One of the things, now the trays, if you notice, you can kind of see I've poked holes in the bottom of most of it at this point. I got a little bit more to go on that, using just a stick with a pointy end on it. And again, the whole idea of putting the holes in the bottom is water drainage during the germination process, but as well as the roots won't have to struggle to try to go through anything, to get into the ground once we set this in the ground and then plant, put its soil over the top. So they should just be able to go right into the native soil as it exists. And this theoretically will be rotted off by the time the carrots are grown and ready to harvest. So just got to get these guys filled up, and then we'll get them planted. So filling the carrot trays, what I'm going to do with these guys is just get enough that it's right below. You can kind of see like there's an elevated part of the tray itself on the egg carton, and I'm just trying to get it into each one of these where the egg actually would rest. So I'm not trying to overfill it. because we don't need tons of soil here just to get it germinated, because the whole key to this thing is once they germinate, we're gonna get them get these trays in the ground. They're not going to grow on in here, and so they won't be constrained in here basically by it. And that is it. Now I may just take a little brush here. Just brush off the edges so I don't have too much laying around on the outside. It's not going to be perfect, but that would be it. So basically dampen it down, and we'll put the carrots on it. And one of the things about germinating carrots is they like to be dark. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put over the top a solid tray. So it's going to be covered just basically. So the whole point is the tray actually fits inside the solid tray, and that will keep light away from them. And carrots do a lot better with that kind of situation. So when I seed them in here, the whole point is it's going to take somewhere, I think it could take up to 2 weeks for these guys to germinate. So it's going to be a matter of keeping an eye on them, not too wet, not too dry, and keeping them in the dark. And we'll see how we go. I'm kind of really thinking that if this works as people have said it works, that this would be really nice to be a lot more efficient in terms of, for small scale carrot growing like we're doing, is that would really work out well for us. Because what this would give us on per planting is an example. This tray's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. Okay, so it's got 30 basic. So I'm doing about 60 to 70 carrots. So what have I got? Have I got like 5 dozen carrots basically in a planting, which is pretty good for 2 people. I mean, I'm not looking to raise, tons of carrots to put away or anything like that. So the whole idea would be that we would have enough and then do another planting and just kind of keep it going. Can't plant them during the hottest part of the season, but we can pick it up again in the fall or for fall for a planting that way. You kind of got to be careful though with planting into the long day versus the short day. They could go to seed instead of actually make a good root. So I may be making a mistake. I don't know. I guess I'll find out planting them here in spring whether I'm going to end up with a problem, not enough root, but something that might want to go to seed too fast. So I just got to be kind of cognizant of that. I haven't grown carrots enough to know that part of it, but I know that there is an issue with particularly type. You can fall into that with radishes for sure. That if you plant them too late, they're going to go very, very quickly to trying to make seed. So like when you're planting radishes late into the long day, they will tend to go hot, bitter, and go to seed very, very quickly. Whereas planting after the longest, or into the shorter day, you can get to where a radish will grow and it'll get to size and actually will hold during. So like I've known people who have raised radishes like for a winter market, and they planted them in the fall before the daylight got too low, and so they got up and they actually made radish bulbed up, I guess if that's the right term, and they can actually kind of keep them kind of in a holding pattern as long as they don't freeze out and have fresh radishes for a longer period of time, particularly in the wintertime, without them going hot. But I guess I'm kind of with radishes. For me, I just plant them in the ground, and they're really pretty fast, and I tend to just plant as I need them. The same thing like with Hackerai turnips. Those are those little white They're about the size of a good radish, and they're kind of on the sweet side. It's called a Hackeri turnip. It's technically a turnip, but it kind of looks almost like a radish. And those are the type of things I like to plant this time of spring. And I'll be planting those directly, and we'll also do that this week while we're planting the sweet peas down there. So we got a couple of different things to do. All right, let me just get this cleaned up and get our trays wetted down, and then we'll get them seeded. Okay, the one thing I've already noticed about these guys is we wetted them down, and you got to be careful with it. So because they can turn a graham cracker pretty fast. So, but I wanted to make sure that soil had moisture in it. And I probably should have wetted the soil down a lot more before I put it in, instead of watering it in the actual carton tray itself. So in order to give it some stability, I've turned a holding tray upside down and then put these guys on top of it to kind of give it some stability. That way I won't be handling it that much. I don't want to be handling, obviously, I guess why these things are damp like that. So they're already kind of getting a little soft. So that was a key mistake. So in the future, make sure you wet the soil and then fill it. Important point. Okay, carrot seed is really a fairly small seed. And these guys, they say they can get to full size in 50 days. So we'll see. About a 1/4 inch deep is kind of what I want to do. So I'm probably just going to use like a vermiculite covering over it, like just press them into the soil, you know, not really try to get it too like, you know, making a divot or something like that. So I'll use this seeder and just knock off like 2 to 3 seeds per cell. I've got over 750 seeds, so I'm not too worried about running out. They're not pelletized, but they are fairly small. So I guess I just got to be careful with that, and kind of get them in that way. So being as blind as I am, I got to use my glasses. So this is, let's see here, we're just going to start here on this end and work our way back towards me, and then I'll turn the thing around. I'm going to put at least 2 per cell, and that way I'm not wasting a lot of seed. So this may take a little bit. So what we're going to do here is we'll have a brief musical interlude. Just kidding. As we go here to get it done. Now after, like I said, after I get these like in the individual cell itself, I'll press it in with my fingers just to make sure I've got them in, so there's good contact with the soil. And then we're going to wrap something over the top, like I said, put a tray over the top to give it some darkness. And then check them every day or so just to make sure we're not drying out. Now some of these may have 3 in it. I'm trying not to get that level, but sometimes it just happens. All right, that takes care of that. So basically, that's as complicated as it gets. Just making sure I got them all patted in. And the idea is that they've got good contact with the soil. And then we'll put a little bit of vermiculite over the top. I'll just kind of mist it at that point, and then we'll set this off to the side. I'm not going to put them on a heat mat or anything. We'll just set them off to the side, and it should be, like I said, somewhere around 10 to 14 days, I should see little carrots come up. And once they kind of come up, we're going to want to get these guys out in into the tunnel, into the row as quickly as possible. So these should be fast-growing carrots. Theoretically, we should have them, I would think, by early June, if this works out right on this planting. And that's basically it for what we're trying to do here. Let's see if I can find my vermiculite. What did I do with it? Oh, how I lose things in the greenhouse. Sometimes it's in the least place you'd expect to see it, like, you know, right next to you. So I'm just going to make sure that I've covered this lightly, because again, when their planting instructions are that they don't get planted very deep at all, no more than really a 1/4 inch or so, which is almost like a surface planting. So we'll just kind of go through and get the vermiculite on the top, and then spray it with a nice misting of water to dampen things down. This greenhouse gets to about 70-75 during the day. At nighttime, I've got a heater on it so it doesn't get below 45. But realistically, with our nighttime temperatures now, we're actually in the mid-40s to right in that zone. So we're not in bad shape at all when it comes to temperatures at night. Occasionally we get a frost, but at this point we're actually got more nights without frost than with frost. For us, we get frost when it stops raining. It clears up, and then the nighttime temperatures drop. But this is spring for us, or early spring, so we tend to get either continually rain showers, or we get fog or something like that that kind of prevents it from getting down to that cold. But occasionally it does happen. So that's it. Next step is I put a dark tray over the top. Make sure there's nothing in it. And that way we are basically excluding most of the light. It's not a perfect seal fit, but it's going to take out most of the light. I'm going to put it on a bottom shelf, so it's kind of away from our light anyway. And then, like I said, check it every couple of days just to make certain that nothing weird is going on. So if I put it down here, it's going to be kind of away from the main light in the greenhouse, and it should just do fine. So we got the carrots in place over there, and the next step would be planting the cole crops. It's kind of a pretty routine thing into the 6-packs. So I'm not going to really film that part of it. Just basically, like I said, we're trying to do is get 2 6-packs of each. And I'm not going to double seed. I'm just going to put in single seed, because all the germinations, according to at least as they were tested, they're in the 90s. So I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be okay. And minimum, I should be covering myself by planting 12. I don't need 12. I only need maybe 6 or so of a particular type of plant at this point. And we'll just get those guys on probably on a heat mat of 68 degrees till I start to see some germination, then move them off and grow them cool. So next step, let's go get the peas planted, and we'll show you the trellis system we're going to use. Okay, so we're down in the tunnel, and it's pretty bright in here. And my apologies if our exposure is a little weird. But what we did is we put up Hortonova netting. What this is 6-inch netting. It's secured to the top of the tunnel with zip ties, and the bottom is with just ground stakes. And we're going to plant the peas at about 4 to 5 inches apart, so on 2 sides. So we're going to have 2 rows of 36. This is about a little over probably 14 feet section, so that should take care of 1 tray of our shelling peas. And then a little bit later, we're going to be planting right next to it would be our snow peas, and that'll be significantly less. That'll only be about probably about 8 feet. And that, what we noticed last year is we had really good luck with the net in terms of holding the peas up. The peas even naturally kind of wanted to go right to it. So this variety did really well, kept it up and nice and kept it from flopping around, and we got really good production off it. We wetted it down again just before we're planting it, so it's kind of going to be a little easier to stick the dibble stick in and get a good hole to put the plants in. We also used a compost chicken manure compost on it, just about, probably about between 1/8 and 1/4 inch of when we were doing it. And this is all now under electroculture, so it's going to be really interesting to see how it all comes out. So before we plant, though, what we're going to be doing is we're going to take the plants and we're going to give them a soak in some leaf mold soil. So we've got a tray down here that we're going to be using. It's a mortar tray, and we're going to do is we're going to put a good handful of leaf mold soil in here and just fill it with about 1 inch or 2 of water, get it kind of all mixed in really good, and then give the plants a soak for a minute or two before we actually stick them in the ground. And then the last thing we'll do when we finish up is we'll just use a watering can and apply this leaf mold soil solution to the plants as they're in the ground, so they kind of get a double soak all the way around. And that should, a past experience has been that really eliminates transplant shock, and they seem to do really well. So leaf mold soil, this is stuff we've harvested, and you can kind of see it's still got some undigested leaves in it, but it's got a lot of biology in it. So we'll just kind of get it all worked in with the water. And I only need to put a couple inches in here, and then we'll be able to just give the plants a good soak. So this is exciting video right here. All right, watch the guy fill a tray with water. Woo. Okay, that's probably good enough. And if you missed it, we did a video on harvesting leaf mold soil, and you can kind of go back and check that out. And it doesn't hurt to put your hands in it, and kind of, it's just like playing with mud pies. Just want to make sure it's all nice and mixed in good. Okay, so the next step is we're going to take our pea plants and just stick them in. I'll put a little more water in just to get it up to the edge of the tray. This before, this is our dibble stick. It's basically an old shovel handle, and sharpened it to a point. And what I found is this size, which is about 1 inch and probably a little over 1 inch and a quarter, roughly thereabouts, in terms of diameter. It might not even be that much, but it's wide enough that it corresponds to when I stick it in the ground and just give it a little twist, that I end up with a nice planting hole of about that deep, which is perfect for a 6-pack plug, and it just goes right in. And there isn't really a lot of extra work to do other than just quickly go down and make the holes and stick the plants in. And one of the things to note here is this pre-soak also helps release the plants from the 6-pack tray. You know, sometimes when you transplant stuff, they stick and you end up ripping the tray, or you end up ripping the plant up. Give them a good pre-soak and then let them sit for a few minutes after they've been in it before you start to get them out. What you'll find is they'll slip right out of those 6-packs or any kind of planting thing. So anything like you're buying from, you know, a nursery or a home center or stuff like that, just do the same thing. Just even if you don't have leaf mold soil, just fill it up with some water and let the plant sit for a couple of minutes. Pull it out, let it drain for a couple more minutes. They'll be easy to slip in and out. The things that we're going to do in here is we're going to continue to treat, at least in the initial couple of weeks while they're in vegetative growth, we're going to treat it with the JMS solution about once every 10 days, and also a very weak diluted solution of JLF. There's probably plenty of fertility in the soil with the compost chicken manure that we put in. And I think calling it McNure, it's actually manure. Well, I don't know what it's like a brain Freudian slip. Anyway, between those things, it should be really good in terms of keeping the fertility up. Now, one of the things I did is I staggered the holes on both sides. So they're actually, it'd be like if you looked at it, you go hole, and then the other side has a hole that would be corresponding to the center of the distance between the first two on the other side. So that way it's kind of like a little bit of an offset. So, but in the end, we'll plant the entire tray. So that's all there is to it. The holes are done. Got my plants down here, pulling them out, and they're in good shape. So we're just going to let them sit for a few minutes right on the edge here, and then I'll come back and stick them in the hole. Okay, you can kind of see, I kind of didn't film the part about planting because it was kind of so bright in here. I wasn't sure whether you guys would pick it up, but you can kind of see how they're lined out, and these guys are all going to really start taking off pretty fast because I probably am a week, maybe a week late on getting these in the ground. Probably should have been more like last week of February instead of the first week of March. This is week 10, so I probably should have been more like week 9 or even 8. They're still okay. The roots all look nice and white, so I didn't really have any issues there, but they were starting to kind of gather around the bottom of the actual cell itself. So, but they'll quickly take off, I think, at this point. Anyway, we're finishing up here today. Just going to put the rest of the leaf mold solution on them, and they'll all be watered in really good. So that's what I'm doing this week. Greenhouse work, getting stuff in the ground. It's week 10. It's spring out here. So thanks for watching today. As always, stay safe out there. We'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.